May I have your attention, please? Good evening.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. We thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoy another exciting episode of our show.
Good evening. It's another episode of Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. It's the six-man Dean Geronimo, and as always, from NJ to NC, I'm in the studio with my right-hand man, Mark Lee. So, Mark, let's rewind and tell us what you did last time.
Hey, I've been keeping busy as always. Things are just going real well, and things are going well. But, last week, I had a good week in sports. This week, not as good a week in sports. It was not a good week for any of my teams. I don't know what was going on, but my teams were not doing well. The Vikings got hammered. Your Baltimore Ravens got hammered. It was just not a good night for teams. I was really feeling good about my Marquette Golden Eagles after they had defeated Villanova, but then they got lost in an overtime game to Providence and then went into your neck of the woods, Seton Hall, and they just handled them like they were nobody's business. So, it was not a good week in sports for me, unlike last week. But, we're going to hopefully bounce back. We got Xavier coming our way on Wednesday. I think that's a home game for the Marquette Golden Eagles, and then we got to play Georgetown. So this is supposed to be the weaker side of the division, but, it's the Big East. Ain't nothing always going to be possible in terms of like easy wins in the Big East. Even the lowest teams might give you a run for your money. So I don't care whether you at the top or the bottom of the division, you better be bringing your A game. We do have one of the division leading scorers in the country, so that's a good thing that we got him in the house, and hopefully he can make some noise. He's the leading scorer in the nation, Marcus Howard. So he's definitely making some noise on the national scene, and he's a junior. So, with us that are fans, I hope he's going to stick around for 2 years and maybe, bring us some Big East title. We would love it for a national title, but, that's asking for a lot when we down 1-3 in the conference. But I'm still keeping the faith and hoping that things are going to happen on a positive side. And speaking of sports, I did mention, I was rooting for your Ravens, by the way. I really hoped they were going to do it, but they just could not seem to have any answer whatsoever. But speaking of sports, I was just checking the news earlier today, and, it's bad enough we had a cheating scandal in football. It seems like we're having a cheating scandal in baseball, because it seems like the Houston Astros have got walloped with a big fine. Yes, I just saw it on the news. They have been walloped with a big fine because apparently they were stealing signals during the World Series. So, yes, the Houston Astros were stealing signals and had just got hit with some big fines. I think some of their leading staff members have been fired and everything. So that just came out on the news today that they got fired real quickly and real fast. So that just happened. I don't know if it was earlier today or yesterday, but it's definitely breaking news that the Houston Astros have caused all kinds of trouble and have upset the sports world. Because, like I said, I don't know why these teams think that folks ain't gonna be watching them. And apparently they were, had like complicated signals involving a trash can and computers and things of that nature. But for some reason, they thought nobody was gonna be watching them and that they weren't gonna get caught for doing what they were done. Because it says Astros punishment in sign stealing scandal sends shockwaves through baseball. So yeah, that's what they're saying, and apparently this just came out earlier today. But yeah, even the world of sports, it says Major League Baseball's punishment for former Houston Astros manager A.J. Hinch and general manager Jeff Luhnow sends shockwaves through the sport Monday. Current and retired players reacted to the news as it broke. Cincinnati Reds pitcher Trevor Bauer and New York Mets pitcher Noah Syndergaard were among those who made some kind of comment on social media. So, yeah, apparently they were out there finding new kinds of ways to win and steal those signs and everything. So, like I said, I don't know. You're on national TV. How are you going to think that you're going to get away with folks not paying attention to you? That's what I don't get. I mean, these are like, you're on national TV and you think folks are not going to be paying attention to what you're doing. So, You got to explain to me what that's all about, that they thought that they were going to get away with that kind of madness, but they thought they were going to do it, and it didn't quite happen. So that was one of the news that I heard about that was going on the national scene and the international scene, because, baseball is an international sport. And then, of course, the other thing that people are talking about on today is the Oscar nominations. Yes, the Oscar nominations are out. Joker, the drama about the mentally ill Batman villain that sparked backlash with its realistic depictions of extreme violence, triumphed at the 92nd Annual Academy Award nominations on Monday morning. They got 11 nods, the most of any film. 3 films were close behind with 10 nominations. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is Quentin Tarantino's fictional ode to 1960s Hollywood. The Irishman, which is Martin Scorsese's mob drama starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. Then that's a long movie. That's 3.5 hours. And 1917, the World War I epic that centers on 2 British soldiers on a dangerous trip to deliver a critical message that could save 1,600 troops. All 4 of those movies also earned Best Picture nominations. Rounding out the prestigious category is Little Woman, Greta Gerwig's version of Louisa May Alcott's tale of 4 sisters growing up in Massachusetts. Marriage Story, which centers on an excruciating divorce and custody battle. Parasite, the South Korean psychological thriller / dark comedy. Jojo Rabbit, about a young German boy who counts Hitler as an imaginary friend. And Ford versus Ferrari, based on a true story of Ford's goal to make a faster car than the Ferrari. For a second year in a row, there were no women nominated in the Best Director category. Nominees included Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, Bong Joon-ho, Sam Mendes, and Todd Phillips, with the notable snub of Gerwig. Once again, the Oscar ceremony will be host-free after the debacle over Kevin Hart's tweets in 2019. So the show's producers say they aren't taking any chance, so they're not going to have a host. And the nominations were announced on Monday morning, and that was hosted by actress Issa Rae and John Cho. So, as I'm going through these nominations and I'm looking down here, and, I think maybe you're going to have to tell me, Dean, didn't we have some decent African-American movies that were released last year, or was that the year before? Because I'm going through here. Oh, I do see Harriet. There is a nomination for Best Actress in a Leading Role going to Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, because I was about to get real worried as I was thumbing through here that I was not seeing any of our movies out here. And Harriet was a big movie, but it seems to me that we had some other movies in our community as well. But, they talk about Greta getting snubbed, but as I'm thumbing through this list, I'm not seeing a lot of African-American presence. Like I said, I'm looking even in the Best International Films, I see a South Korean film, I see a Spanish film, I see a French film, North Macedonia, and Poland. So I'm not seeing a lot of us in what Hollywood is putting out for their nominations this year. So far, like I said, I'm scanning down. I do see some documentary features, so maybe some of those have got an African-American twist to them, but I'm not seeing a lot of love for Harry. Oh, there's one for a Best Original Song. So Stand Up did get nominated along with Into the Unknown from Frozen 2 and I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocket Man. So I am seeing some nice songs and everything, and I'm seeing some nominations for some things from Star Wars, but like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but as I'm thumbing through and talking to you, I'm not seeing enough of what I would like to see if we're going to try to be represented in the Hollywood community as well. So like I said, that's just my kind of take on that. And one other take, and then I'm hoping that we're going to hear from our guests. We got a couple of guests that are going to be calling in very shortly today. But I did see, and I got a question for you. I thought Cory Booker was already out of the race. But I got a text.
No, but he
failed
to say, didn't he?
Because I thought he was already out of the race.
No,
but
he was still in until today when he realized, I guess, that there was no sunshine or pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. So he said, you know what? It's time. So, he's out. He's out now.
Okay. I hadn't heard him making any noise, so maybe that's just me making assumptions since I didn't hear him making no noises. And maybe I imagined that I heard him make an announcement about already being out of the race, but apparently he went ahead and made it official that he's out of the race right now. And I was watching a little bit of the political Senate stuff going on, and I noticed that they're still trying to get the articles of impeachment to the Senate, and that whole thing is going on and things of that nature. So I did notice that was happening, and I'm kind of curious as to what folks are going to be thinking about that, because one of the, there was an argument that one of the Republican senators made that actually made sense. And a lot of times I don't think that the Republican senators make a lot of sense. And not just because they're Republicans, just that sometimes, and it's not just Republicans, sometimes just senators in general don't make a lot of sense. But he did make a very valid point, which is that if we go into the trial of an impeachment, won't that impact those that are running that are in the Senate? Because they got to sit there and they can't actually go on the on the trail. So that's going to hurt people like Elizabeth Warren. It's going to hurt people like Bernie Sanders. It's going to hurt people like, they named a whole bunch of folks. And it wouldn't necessarily hurt Biden because he's not in the Senate anymore. And it wouldn't necessarily hurt Pete because he's, I guess is he still mayor or not mayor? I don't remember. But he's definitely not in the Senate. But, everybody from, they named like about 5 or 6 that are currently still in the race, and they are senators, including some that are major candidates. So it looks like that might be interesting to find out whether they are going to push for this Senate trial, since that could also impact their candidacy.
Wow. We'll see.
I'm sorry.
We'll
see. And one other quick thing, because I do want to get to our calls and everything, but just one other quick thing. I was curious to know what you thought about this whole thing about, apparently the Queen has said that Prince Harry, I didn't say Princess, but Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will be allowed to live in Canada part of the time. So they said that they were going to step down from being full-time members of the royal family, and that they would like to spend part of their time in Canada. Not the U.S., but in Canada. And apparently the Queen said that she and the royal family are entirely supportive of the couple's decision to step back from public life. So Queen Elizabeth II has given permission for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, a.k.a. the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, to split their time between Canada and the UK. And she said that in a statement earlier today, said although we would have preferred them to remain full-time working members of the royal family, we respect and understand their wish to live a more independent life as a family while remaining a valued part of my family, the Queen said. So the Queen's statement came after Harry and Meghan made the surprising announcement that they would step back as senior members of the royal family. They also announced that they would split their time between North America and the UK and would stop receiving taxpayer funding. So apparently the taxpayers in the UK will not be funding them as they make this move between spending time in the UK and Canada. We do know that, Meghan got a lot of flack when she married Harry, some of it around race and other things that were going on in their life and everything. So I was just wondering what Dean thinks of this latest move in the royal family.
I'm not mad at them. It's a good thing for them because they don't want to be controlled, and they didn't have a problem with saying so. And some people will say, well, it's not necessarily control, but there's got to be strict rules you follow, certain things you say, certain things you do, certain things you can't do. They have a family, and they want to live a normal life without cameras always being in their face, without people always asking them silly questions. So, I'm glad. And the Queen said, you know what? Y'all go ahead. No hard feelings. It's their choice. And you're allowing them to be adults. You know what I mean? So I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it at all either. I think it's a great move on their part. I was somewhat surprised that they did not decide to come to the United States because I believe her family is here in the United States. But, hey, Canada is just up north, and they can still say they're in North America, and they can get to their family members that live here in the States. So that I was somewhat surprised. I was thinking it might be between the UK and the U.S., but I guess they decided to go with a compromised location of Canada.
Smart move.
But that's just very smart move. And that's just my theory and what I think about it. I did think I heard a doorbell, and I did hear one of my guests say that they were on the line, so we might have one or two. But let's see what we got on the line and see who we got to talk to on this particular evening. So we've always got interesting conversations.